In the meantime, President Tinubu has declared a state of emergency on food security, and that's a response to the high cost of foodstuff. Special advisor to the president, Dele Alaki, announced interventions to reverse inflation and ensure future supplies of affordable foods. We'll have a report on that in a few minutes.
Yes, indeed. Well, Arise Exchange anchor Boason Omofaye is joining us to help us understand the breakdown and the sense behind this approval. Boason, so good to have you on Newsnight tonight. So help us understand it. I mean, first off, that approval by the House of Reps, it went quite speedily. And really, will this address the issues of the impact of the removal of fuel subsidy for Nigerians?
Well, thank you so much, Ngozi and Tolu. You know, the food subsidy is a multi-trillion naira figure, and what we're throwing into it right now is just a start. It's a curtain raiser, in a manner of speaking. So you're talking about a $500 billion supplementary on one hand, and if we bring the $800 million from the World Bank into the kitty, this will not be able to address the hole that we're trying to fill. And we just go through the Dele Alake's statement earlier, which was several paragraphs. They contain immediate, medium-term to long-term plans that this administration want to put in place to ensure food sustainability and water security. I am happy to start with that at least the issue of food security and water availability and affordability have now become a matter for the National Security Council. We ought to have put this in place a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. The previous administration did not, and that was quite unfortunate. Let me say that, put that first out there, that these palliatives and these measures to ensure that we begin to feed the burgeoning population and looking at the impact of what is going on globally should have been done much earlier than now, before the food subsidy was removed by the current administration. Now, just a few weeks after that, the subsidy removal, this is being put in place. With the move to unify the exchange rate, the news is tightening around millions of Nigerians. So this will not be enough, but at least it's a start. Ngozi.
Okay, it's a start, but it's not going to be enough. Make us understand how the disbursement can make sense, because at the end of the day, we're still talking about having a proper database in Nigeria. We're still trying to achieve census. So how do they really want to go about disbursing 6,000 naira every month to 12 million households?
Well, the devil is always in the details, as you know, but I'm sure there is a database of vulnerable Nigerians which the World Bank has in place as a development institution with the Nigerian government over the past couple of years. I'm sure that will be used. If you remember, the immediate past administration did what you call a trader money of about 5,000, 10,000 naira to market men and women just a couple of years ago. That was part of the palliatives that was set to cushion the impact of COVID-19 of 2020 and 2021, and then we have this problem on our hands right now in 2022. So I'm sure there's a system in place in which this 8,000 naira can be disbursed to vulnerable households over the next 6 months. But if you ask me, 12 million vulnerable households, I'm sure between Lagos and Kano you find up to 12 million households without going to the 36 states of the Federation. So the number of households that are hurting in Nigeria right now are far in excess of 12 million. But as I said, this is a curtain raiser. We need to put boots on the ground. This is a very national emergency. Now we're talking about this administration hasn't put a single kobo on the table for as far as fighting insecurity, but it knows that the food security and water availability for women, for children, for elderly, and for others is very important. This food security ought to have been part of the Nigeria Security Council apparatus and the ecosystem for the past 5-10 years. We didn't do that, and that's quite unfortunate. Up to the moment right now in which Nigerians can no longer, many Nigerians can, in some parts of the country, they could barely go to the farms. Benue State, the food basket of Nigeria, around Niger State, and all the way to a number of other states. Folks are running all the way to the cities and towns nearby and abandoning farms. I've been to Benue State in a couple of the hinterlands, and I saw huge farmlands that were not have been abandoned because of banditry and killings and senseless killings that have gone around in the country. This has to stop. Things have to move. I read what Dele Alaki said. There will be work right now to talk to those organizations that can ensure mechanized farming for new farmlands to be created. We also need security. We need to put the two together. And some analysts, including myself as a business journalist, some of us said this years ago, that you cannot fight security alone without putting socio-economy and food security side by side. They need to work together. For all the good work that the past administration did, as far as pushing back on insurgency was concerned, every mile, every inch, every kilometer that was pulled back from the Boko Haram and insurgents, have we put sustainable economic productivity, including food, agriculture, and agro-allied in those places? I'm not too sure we did that. So we didn't feed those places. We didn't put things in place up till we have a problem on our hands. So the administration has unveiled the two biggest elephants in the room: the food subsidy on one hand, and of course the exchange rate unification, which is work in progress. Now, I'm very happy as well. Part of what Dele Alaki read out was that the Central Bank of Nigeria will continue to intervene in the agriculture sector. That means that whatever rejigging needs to be done with the Anchor Borrowers Program will have to be done. If there are new thinkings that need to be put on table, that will need to be done very quickly. I'm also happy that Mr. President announced that there would be a very strong synergy, and that's what happened like yesterday, between the Ministry of Agriculture and Water Resources, because we have so many dams, we can do irrigation in this country. There's no reason why Nigeria should have one single planting season. We can have 2 and 3. But because the Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resource and Water Resources had never worked together before, they ought to be Siamese twins. 2 pages of the same coin. They never worked together for 8 years or more. They work in silos. That had to change. That had to change like yesterday. So I expect these these ministries, the PAMSEC, the directors, the agencies within the Ministry of Water Resources and Agriculture to come together and leverage the private sector. So a number of initiatives have been announced, but going back to the 8,000 naira, that would just be a drop in the ocean. However, if you look at the way Nigerians are hurting now in terms of the effect of things, that is a whole lot of money on the table, if you ask me.
And thankfully, Boason, President Tinubu has declared a state of emergency on Nigeria's food security. But the question people are asking, at least some. Okay, we'll take a report and come back very quickly. Boason, just hold on.
It is no longer news that Nigerians are grappling with high cost of food items. While availability is not an issue, it has become increasingly difficult for many to afford the hiking prices. The president's decision to remove subsidy on fuel has further aggravated an already precarious situation. To reverse the trend, President Bola Tinubu has declared a state of emergency on food security and announced a series of initiatives aimed at ensuring uninterrupted supplies of affordable foods for ordinary Nigerians. Among the key interventions are the immediate release of fertilizers and grains to farmers and households to mitigate the effects of subsidy removal, while the central bank will continue to play a pivotal role in funding the agricultural value chain.
Accordingly, and in line with this administration's position on ensuring that the most vulnerable are supported, the President has declared with immediate effect the following actions. 1, a state of emergency on food security. 2, that all matters pertaining to food and water availability and affordability as essential livelihood items be included within the purview of the National Security Council. As with most emergencies, there are immediate, medium, and long-term interventions and solutions. In the immediate term, this government intends to deploy some savings from the fuel subsidy removal into the agricultural sector, focusing on revamping the agri sector.
The message is that middlemen who have kept all these grains, because we'll be releasing everything we have in stock. So the message is that middlemen and those who are storing these things to create arbitrage and get profits, this is the best time to release it quickly, because once we release those paddy and the maize that the central bank has, your prices will be depressed.
In addition, the government plans to establish a national commodity board that will monitor and regulate food prices, ensuring fair pricing for consumers.
Through this board, government will moderate spikes and dips in food prices. As for storage, existing warehouses and tanks will be revamped to cut waste and ensure efficient preservation of food items. This government says it's going to do away with the old ways of livestock business. So livestock business is holistic, whether herders, grazers, whatever.
Efforts to facilitate trade and increase revenue from food and agricultural exports are also highlighted. The government aims to streamline customs processes and reduce transportation costs, benefiting both producers and consumers. With these interventions, the government hopes to not only address the immediate crisis, but also create employment opportunities in the agricultural sector. However, Nigerians eagerly await to see the implementation of these initiatives, hopeful they will bring more affordable food items for them. From the presidential villa, Adesua Omoruan, Arise News.
Well, let's head directly to the streets. The cost of food continues to soar, including in the capital, Abuja. Latest statistics show a 24% increase in May 2023, and that's compared with prices in May last year. Arise correspondent Mary Chinda went to some markets and reports.
Yes.
A typical market within the Federal Capital Territory now has consumers groaning over increasing cost of food items. The fear is that unless urgent steps are taken, prices will continue to rise, with people unable to afford staples. Let's compare prices of some major staples between May and July. A paint bucket of gari of about 4 kilograms, which used to be 1,800 naira in May, now goes for 2,500 naira. For the same measure of beans, the price has gone up from 1,500 to 2,500 naira, with a 50-kilogram bag selling for 60,000 from 55,000 naira in May. Similarly, a 4-kilogram measure of groundnut oil has gone up from 4,500 naira in May to 5,500.
We don't have a choice, we must eat. And that's just the situation we have found ourselves. And I think that is exactly what our leaders are taking advantage of, the fact that the common man must survive.
The prices of chicken, fish, and animal protein have also soared. In spite of this, shoppers are left with little option.
The price of chicken in Wuse market is rising up. The reason why, because of transportation, have been increased anywhere.
Some people they buy, some people not they buy. But now, market is scarce. No rush to come buy because anything then is increased.
Around May, we said it's affordable price, but we have an increasement of the price because of the transportation issue.
The cost of yam tubers are also prohibitive. For a bunch of medium-sized yam tubers bought at 5,000 naira only 3 months ago, you now have to pay 7,500 naira.
As the commodity, it's not easy for us. As they commodity the subsidy, it's not easy for us at all.
For consumers and traders, the only reason for the sharp increase is the same: the removal of fuel subsidy.
Before they said this kind yam, 500, 700, now 1,500, as you can see, 1,500.
As Nigerians frown at the realities of the hike in food prices, their call is for government's intervention.
What do we talk about? Now, because of Fulani S-men, they no agree with farmers they enter. Now, he make this thing cost like this. You understand? Now, I'm from Ebonyi State. To carry onions, go my place, or carry what do they call it? Carry nama go Igbo land na wahala na.
Stock fish, poor man no they eat them again, only rich man. And we know they see them. Then go there inside house, then go they supply them. We where they market, we know they sell. We know they see them. So now our government to know what they do. Nigeria is dying, burning.
It's only the beginning of the second half of the year, and food prices are actually soaring across several markets in Abuja. The common denominator between buyers and sellers here is that ability to cope despite how high the prices of these commodities go. But the question exactly is, for just how long would Nigerians cope with soaring food prices? From the Boason area of Abuja, Mary Chinda reporting for Rise News.
All right, thank you very much, Mary Chinda. Very important questions there. For how long really can Nigerians bear? I went to the market only on Saturday. A basket of tomatoes, 8,500 naira. And the woman just looked the other way. Madam, is it like you buy or you no buy? Arise Exchange anchor Boason Omofaye is still very much with us. Boason, before we took that report, we're going to ask, look, Tinubu has now declared a state of emergency in food security in Nigeria. What should we expect with this? Is it timely or is it a little too late?
Well, it's better late than never, but again, we've got a situation that's completely different from the Buhari's administration, because first, the food subsidy removal has just been done, and we try to unify the exchange rate. Those two are two of the biggest elephants in Nigeria's economic situation room over the last many years. Every administration seems to be dodging the bullet. Now President Tinubu has taken it heads on. Now he has to leave and how to deal with the consequences of it. And the consequence of that was that he's also inheriting a very poor situation in terms of agricultural output and in terms of delivering food to people in two parts of Nigeria. First, those of us who live in cities, and Nigerians who live very close to farmlands. And that report shows that a number of people cannot even move the agricultural products to next town and villages because of the fear of banditry and kidnapping and violence. That is one thing we have to deal with at the grassroots level. And then you take it a little bit further, is how to move goods, foods, agricultural produce that are wasting in the farmlands to places that are cities and bigger towns and settlements. That is another level. So we have a multi-level layer problem here, and it requires a whole lot of things. One thing I need to say very quickly is that the government can achieve very rapid success if it does one or two things. First, I expect a meeting within the next 24 to 48 hours with all the 36 state governors sitting down with Mr. President, and they need to work together on this. This is a federal national emergency, but are we sure that the state governments have the same sense of urgency in their various jurisdictions at subnational levels? That has to happen very quickly, because food is not grown in Abuja, the federal capital, for 100 and 200 million Nigerians. It's grown across the 36 states of the federation, across the local government. So we need to have the chief executive officers of all the 36 states sitting down with Mr. President and taking their various action plans to their various domains. That will have to hit things close to the ground. And of course, that will have to be coordinated from the Mr. President's office. This is as important as it could get. And who do you deal with when you go to the grassroots? You need to deal with the Farmers Union, women, market women, and others. These are the ones that will have to be dealt with. Let us just hope that the bureaucracy that had always been a problem in Nigeria will not, at both federal and state level, make nonsense of what has been announced tonight by Mr. President through Dili Alake. And that is the most important aspect of this. You need to distribute fertilizers, you need to distribute seedlings, you need to distribute equipment and things like that. Let's hope that those within the public and the civil service will let these things really work and get down to Nigerians that really need it. The country is sitting on a very serious situation right now, and it can only be said to be serious. It is actually worth more than that. We need to feed, we need to produce, we need to circulate, we need to deal with issues of food security, we need to deal with logistics, we need to deal with safety, we need to deal with warehousing, we need to deal with water and irrigation system. It's an entire ecosystem, and we need the private sector right now in agriculture and institutions to work with us very quickly. The AFDB is spending about $850 million with its partners to set up special agro-economic processing zones in Nigeria. That was announced and launched formally in Nigeria before President Buhari left office. So we need to see how what President Tinubu wants to do now will flow into what has been done on ground already.
Okay, Boason, well said, very well said. Food security is national security, we all know. 8,000 naira for every household. With the market realities currently, tell us, how can a household cope with 8,000 naira anyway?
Well, Ngozi just said a bucket of tomato was about 8,000. So if whenever Ngozi gets her own 8,000 naira, she could just buy a bag of a basket of tomato, and that will be her 8,000. She can just eat that with her family for 1 month. That's as simple as it could be. But that sounds very ridiculous. But the reality is this, and I mentioned this earlier. 8,000 isn't a lot of money if you consider the realities of today. But if you consider the level of poverty and hardship that Nigerians are currently going through, 8,000 naira is a whole lot of money on the table. Will it be sufficient for an average household? The answer is no, it will not be enough. But it is something, it's a cutting razor. We need to do this and quickly ramp up on other things that need to be done urgently to bring food to the table. And one of the quick areas the government need to work on was the fact that a lot of produce by farmers are going to waste. Nigeria produces a whole lot of food. Let's get that straight. Despite the insecurity and everything on ground, we still produce a whole lot of tomatoes, pepper, and other consumables. The fact was that we have post-harvest shortage or wastage that is enormous, one of the highest anywhere in the world. How do we rein that in is one of the most immediate things to get done. Look at the mangoes that you produce in Benue State and the yams, for example, that they just go to waste. They just lying by the roadside. There was nobody to pick them up and to transport them, lift them by air, by rail, or by vehicles to the cities. If we resolve the post-harvest problems immediately, then we'll be able to plug the hole very quickly and bring down some of the high-priced food that we have across the country.
Yes,
that is one area we need to put the boots on the ground quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Post-harvest losses.
It's a fine place to live it, but the fundamental question remains, do Nigerians need palliatives or interventionist programs? That's left to be seen. Thank you very much for helping us understand.